Hey everyone, and welcome back to Paleologic. Today, we're talking about a new species of prehistoric crocodile relative that shows us how these animals gave up life on land to become masters of the water. This research was published in the Journal of Vertebrate Paleontology by a team of researchers led by paleontologist Agustin Montetinos of the University of Chile. And it describes a new species of a type of ancient whale that they named Burkesuchus. Let's get into it. Okay, so this study isn't actually about whales at all. Rather, it's about Burkesuchus, a genus which itself is part of a larger group called Crocodilomorpha. This group includes modern crocodiles and alligators as well as their extinct relatives. But unlike crocodiles, most members of Crocodilomorpha were mostly terrestrial. One example is the famous animal called the Garryallosaur, which kind of looked like a giant dinosaur with a long neck. And tail and skull-pelvic reconstruction suggests that it spent very little time in water. Crocodilomorphs evolved during the Triassic period around 250 million years ago, and they began to diversify during the Jurassic. It wasn't until the end of the Cretaceous, around 66 million years ago, that fully aquatic crocodilian-like forms started to appear in the fossil record. And it's been difficult for scientists to figure out how exactly this transition from land to water took place. Did crocodilians evolve from a group that was already semi-aquatic, or did they come from a fully terrestrial group? And if so, when did this transition occur? The problem is that we haven't had many fossils from crocodilians in the early Jurassic, leaving a gap in the fossil record that makes it hard to answer these questions. Until now, that is because Burkesuchus fills this gap somewhat. The new species was found in rocks in Chile that are around 147 million years old, making it the oldest known crocodilian from South America and providing valuable insight into how these creatures moved from land to water. When I say that this creature is a type of ancient whale, I don't mean that it was a cetacean. Instead, I mean that it was a member of the group Archaeocetacea. These animals are considered to be the earliest whales, but they weren't exactly what we think of as whales today. They were more like large, elongated crocodiles with paddle tails. There have been quite a few archaeocetes described to date, including the aptly named monster whale, which could grow over 50 feet long. However, despite there being a lot of archaeocetes, they've only been found in two places, South Africa and the Antarctic Peninsula. And the oldest archaeocetes that have been discovered so far are around 130 million years old. Burkesuchus, the new species described in this paper, was found in Chile, which is the first time an archaeocete has been found in South America. And, as mentioned before, it is also the oldest archaeocetes ever discovered, pushing back the origin of this group to at least 147 million years ago. Now, this isn't the first time that fossils of this particular animal have been found. It was actually originally discovered in 1985. But the team of researchers in this study re-examined the fossils and realized that they represented a previously unknown species. They named the animal Burkesuchus in honor of the paleontologist Philip J. Burke, who helped train one of the authors of the study, and Suchus after the type genus Crocosuchus because it's obviously kind of croc-like. Based on the location where the fossils were found, the researchers estimate that the animal lived around 147 million years ago in what is now southern Chile during the early Jurassic. Because this is a new species, all we really have to go off of are a few vertebrae and some other fragments of the spine. But based on the shape of those bones, the researchers determined that Burkesuchus was around 5 meters long, just a bit smaller than an orca. It was probably a carnivore that spent a decent amount of time in the water, but its anatomy suggested that it was still largely dependent on land. It seems to have used its powerful jaws and teeth to hunt bony fish, but it may have also hunted amphibians, reptiles, and even early mammals. As I said, all we have are a few bits of the spine, but the researchers were able to tell that it had a long neck and back, a short tail, and a narrow head. Overall, it resembled other crocodilians, but it was shorter and more robust, with a longer neck. Based on this body plan, the researchers believed that Burkesuchus had a lifestyle similar to that of the American alligator, which spends a lot of time on land but hunts in the water. However, Burkesuchus was much closer related to the false gharial, a fully aquatic crocodilian. So ultimately, the researchers think it was probably more adapted to an aquatic environment than an alligator. In fact, they think that it inhabited streams and lakes where it fed on fish and other aquatic prey. When it came out of the water onto land, it would move in a way that was similar to modern crocodiles, using its belly to drag itself forward in kind of a sidewinding motion. And while it was in the water, it likely used a more fish-like mode of locomotion, moving its body from side to side in order to propel itself through the water. The thing is, though, it didn't look like a fish. It was more like a whale, hence the term archaeocetes. Its body plan suggests that it had evolved to inhabit an aquatic environment, but it still had limbs and wasn't streamlined. Ultimately, the researchers think that it swam in a way that was kind of awkward for it. So why does any of this matter? Well, to understand the evolution of crocodilians, it's really important to learn how different groups are related to each other. And because crocodilians are still around today, studying their relatives can help us better understand how they evolved and how they will continue to evolve in the future. Plus, learning more about extinct species can give us a better idea of how ecosystems functioned in the past and how those ecosystems changed over time. For example, knowing that this new species of archaeocetes inhabited freshwater habitats can help us better understand how ancient ecosystems functioned. Plus, by studying fossils from different parts of the world, we can track how ancient species migrated across the globe. And understanding how crocodilians evolved can help us predict how they might react to changing environments. This is especially important given that crocodilians have been around for over 200 million years. They've survived mass extinctions and drastic environmental changes. And with human-driven climate change, it's important that we learn as much as we can about them in order to predict how they will fare in the future. Unfortunately, due to habitat destruction and poaching, many crocodilian species are currently threatened. And we have a responsibility to protect these ancient creatures so that future generations can marvel at them just as we have. And that's all for this episode. If you liked it, please hit the like button and subscribe if you haven't already. As always, thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.